Hello. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I can
Hi.
hear you.
Yeah. Who wants to do the intro?
I think Latricia is stepping in
Oh,
to
that's
talk
okay.
a
We're
little bit
waiting for
about what's
Latricia.
going on.
All right. I just posted the link on my Twitter. Hopefully,
Oh,
some people show
fantastic.
up. So,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next session at PrattCon 2021. We have joining us today Mr. Kazu Kibuishi and Miss Paula Wiley. Paula is a children's librarian at our Southeast Anchor location here in Baltimore, and Kazu is the author of the Amulet series, and they will be in conversation about his works, his role as an author and an illustrator, and hopefully we'll be able to see him do some illustrating on today. Take it away, guys.
All right. Thanks so much, Latricia. Uh, hey, it's so wonderful to see everybody this afternoon, although, of course, we're not in person. I'm going to be talking to Kazu Kibuishi. Kazu is the writer and artist of the New York Times best-selling Amulet series. Amulet. The graphic novel series published by Scholastic Graphics. There are currently 8 books in this epic series, which will conclude with book 9. And I'm hoping we can get some information about book 9, but I doubt it. I think he's cagey. Kazu is also the editor, art director, and cover artist for the Explorer and Flight anthologies, and is the cover illustrator for the Harry Potter 15th anniversary edition paperbacks from Scholastic. He is critically acclaimed and has won multiple awards, including an Eisner Award and a YALSA Best Books for Young Adults Award. At the library, I recommend Amulet, Flight, and Explorer to readers anywhere from the age of about 9 years old to adult, and I'm so psyched to be talking to him today. Welcome.
thanks. I should correct one thing though.
Sorry.
I actually never have won an Eisner Award. I don't know where. Yeah, yeah. Some people have pointed that out, and I'm not really big on awards. It's probably my fault because I don't submit to anything. I just have a thing for like I kind of like not winning things and and being under the radar as much as I can be. Maybe that's just the dad part of me that I like to try to stay backstage while the kids are out there. Um, but
Well, you're the biggest winner in every graphic novel book group I've ever done with kids. Seriously, I will put all the books out in the middle of the table and everybody will grab for Amulet.
and that's all that matters to me
Yeah.
is that the readers it's theirs. They take ownership of these things, and that's kind of how I write and I draw too. It's what takes me so long. It's not like I can't draw fast or I can't write fast, but it's hard to create something that you can hand over to somebody and they can take agency and it becomes like a part of their world in a big way. That's the hard part, and the magic of it all too. If you can do that right, then the work lasts longer than the author.
Awesome. Well, let me get right to it. I have a bunch of questions that I want to ask you. I have spent the
Yes.
last couple of weeks reading or rereading, in the case of a bunch of them, Copper and Amulet, almost everything you've ever drawn or written,
Wow.
especially the 8 books of Amulet. And
Yes.
just to give you an idea, I'm a librarian and I don't buy books, but these are not library copies. These are personal copies that we've had for years. So can I get you? It's such a big story with so many things pulled into it, and I am curious to hear how you describe Amulet.
How I describe Amulet is it's about two kids who have to begin the story. They lose their father, who's like their primary breadwinner, the guy who's like the foundation for the family, and then he's all of a sudden gone in their lives, and then their mom is kidnapped and taken away into this fantasy world, and these kids have to make the decision to go and rescue her. And in the process of doing that, and this rescue mission, they learn to become leaders in this fantasy world. Where they have to take enormous amounts of responsibility onto their shoulders, and carry the weight of generations of people. And I think that that's it's reflective of how a lot of kids, all kids, just generally feel when they're young. They know that they're still kids, but they know there's going to be a day when they kind of grow up and they're going to have to be the grown-ups in the room, like in the back of their mind. It's there. And so I was writing a story for a kid like that, because that was me. As a lot of authors, they'll say that they write for kids. Authors will write for the kid version of themselves, and that is very true for me.
So actually, following on that, I talked to a bunch of kids at the library the last couple of weeks and asked, like, what would you ask the author of Amulet? And Joshua, who is 11, said he wanted to know which of the characters was you.
As me, I'd say like a little bit of everyone, and I think that's true for most writers. Because it's all, I'm writing it, so I'm the prism through which the story finds its way to the audience. But yeah, if I had to pick anyone, I mean, I think I'm like Leon, but but my wife says I'm more like Misket.
No.
Yeah. she thinks I'm like Kermit the Frog. So and Misket fits that bill. But there's a lot of me in the way Emily presents herself and the things that she thinks about. I definitely spend the most time with her because she's the main character. And so when I see her in the story, like kind of her reserved manners and things like that, a lot of that I feel, I can relate to.
It is interesting to see a young character like Emily kind of as stoic as she is. Mm-hmm. And I think so all of the things that we've been talking about like taking responsibility and having to save the world, all sound, and mom kidnapped and stuff, all sounds extremely serious. But it's also a book with a lot of humor and lightness as well.
It's going to be a fun ride. Yeah. It's definitely a lot of fun.
So was it a difficult, like, getting the humor in? Like, are there moments when you realize I better lighten things up a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that happens like all throughout. And I think it's, my style is very friendly. It's always kind of been I thought was a problem when I was young, because I was trying to make things that were cool or edgy or, just that looked like, it had a lot of artistry to it. But in the end, all of my stuff ended up looking friendly. It was very cuddly and like it was funny looking. And so I just kind of leaned into that early in my career. I decided, well, that's just my style. Like I just draw very, very appealing, like fun, friendly style. So why don't I write really, challenging stories with it and see what happens? And so you end up seeing these cartoons that are all cute and cuddly and stuff, and all of a sudden they're like in a war zone or something. and like the combination of those two, it's really engaging. Like it engages the reader because you feel like you're in it. You feel like you're there. I think a lot about books like Mouse by Art Spiegelman, and the characters being mice and these cartoony characters actually puts you in their shoes better than if he had rendered them as human beings, I thought, because you can empathize with just an icon almost better than somebody who is very well rendered and is a very specific person.
That's a really interesting insight. It makes me think of, there's a Nathan Hale's Hazardous Tales book about World War I, which is a very complicated subject, and all of the different countries are rendered as, animals, as a bunny or a bear or an eagle. And it makes it easier, first of all, to, tell who's from what country.
Yeah.
But also, I think you're right. I think it puts it at the, like, anybody could be a bunny.
Yeah.
They may not necessarily be the other thing. All right. So here's something that I noticed, like doing the Amulet read straight through. There's a big stylistic change, like from the very first Amulet book to the last. And I actually took some screen grabs from reading the electronic versions, and I wondered if that was so. It starts. Amulet 1 has a little bit more of a sketchier quality, and then by 8 we have these beautiful, incredible landscapes with a huge amount of color. There's a lot more color as the series progresses. Is that something that you did to like match the story, or was that just sort of an organic progression of the way you draw?
Well, I think partly it's because the stories are getting more epic, and I'm not trying to expand the space. So I'm trying to put more energy into smaller spaces. Amulet 9 won't be necessarily all that much bigger than any of the other books, but it should feel the biggest. I mean, we're at the end. It's like the big, the big climactic, finale. And so I think a lot of that is that, but there's another part of it, and that's that we've gotten a lot better at, my assistant Jason Kafo he helps me paint these books. Jason and I have gotten better at production. Same goes for Scholastic Graphics. Our friend Phil Falco, who is our designer, he and Jason and we work together very closely on how we can produce the most vibrant colors, that are that are true to the vision of the books. When I started, we just colored it in Photoshop. We did it in CMYK. We just ran it through the very basic process of what you do with a color file. And now we do a lot of very different things, and we saw that we could. There's a lot that we could. You can change and manipulate to get better results. So number 8, I think, is our it's a reflection of that knowledge going into it's processing now. So there's that, and I'm just trying to spend a little more time as well. Number 1, I barely got that done. 2, 3, 4, 5, all the first 5 books were done at such a pace that I don't know if I could ever physically do that again. Working from 10 a.m. to 4 a.m. 7 days a week. That's what it was like. It was just all I did was work, and so that nearly a decade of time is just like I don't even remember it. It went by so quickly. And I was realizing that if I want to do this for the rest of my life, I'm going to have to change things up a little bit, because I couldn't possibly keep that pace. And so I given myself more time, and with more time, we can make better art. So I actually was fairly good at illustrating and painting at the start, at the very beginning of Amulet. Better than what that book represents, because that book really represents our ability to get something done, and that's it, and not like the ability of the creators on the book. And so I've gotten better, certainly, but not so much that it's what's reflected in the book. The book is getting better because of the process.
Oh, I didn't mean to suggest that first book wasn't amazing.
No.
A whole lot of steps. Very many stairs in that book. Do you want to turn on your camera and do a little drawing with us?
Do drawing? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I'll keep asking you questions and grilling you. And
okay.
You did mention book 9, and is there anything you get to tell us about book 9?
Well, I'm working on it. Here I'll show you my I think this is the camera. I think. Oh no, this is me. Hold on a second.
There you are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I'm working on 9.
Nice.
Over there. I'm just I got to this point about 160 pages or so into the book where I just thought, I need to take a breather and really think things through for the finale, for all the final stuff, whatever 100, maybe a little less than 100 pages left in the whole saga of Amulet. And I have to figure out what goes in those pages, and it's been good. It's been a good process. I've decided to take my time with it for the first time in my life, I don't know. There's not much I can say except I'm working on it, and I'll be hopefully done soon.
I Amulet has so much stuff in it that has like there's airships and there's mech suits and there's like unbelievable plants and things like that. Do you ever shape the story because you think, man, I really want to draw some mech suits?
That's actually a really good question because I'm like kind of doing that right now in a sequence that I've got going. Sometimes, I don't really shape scenes around those drawings, but I will shape like pages around them, about like things I want to draw.
Yeah.
But most of the time I don't do that. I just draw based on how the story is progressing. But I do have to remember every now and then that these are just drawings and people are looking at really cool drawings, and I need to put cool drawings in there, and I can't just put story in there all the time. And it makes it fun for me too.
Oh,
But
good.
it goes back and forth. It's not any one thing. It really depends on the sequence.
Well, I read a lot of graphic novels, and there are a lot of airships out there, I have to
Yes,
say.
yeah, people do like those airships.
And
I
I
don't.
figure they must be the best to draw.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a lot of what we grew up on too. A lot of Miyazaki's work. There's a whimsy, associated with airships. It's like I imagine in real life it would not be whimsical to have to run an airship or anything like that. It's not very practical. Um, but yeah, it's like it's like spaceships as well. It's like fantasy, science fantasy.
So, uh, while we're watching you, and I can't believe that you're just drawing that, that's just amazing. So, how do you do the story? So, do you sit and sort of plot out the entire book and then get started drawing, or is it a hand in glove process, or do the
Um,
images come first?
every book is different. Um, you know, it's I'd say now these days I put more emphasis on research than anything else, and that's just like going out and learning about things that I'd like to put into the books. I'm trying to get better at that, like the reportage part of writing, and getting good experiences into the books. I it's like for me, the reason why I do comics and I'm not still like working on in the film industry is that I actually just liked being able to not have to get some kind of approval for whatever story I'm telling. I can just go ahead and draw and like a jazz musician, I can just riff on something and I can make a story based on that. Very few filmmakers get that ability because of the budgets and the planning that has to happen around a film. Hayao Miyazaki, who is one of my favorite filmmakers, he has that leverage to be able to just kind of freely create, and people just follow him wherever he goes. But I mean, I'm not Hayao Miyazaki, and I don't have that pedigree, so I have to. Coming into comics, it allowed me to do that on a small scale, and so I don't write a script. I don't plan things out outside of kind of figuring out what markers I want to hit. So I think of them as like fence posts or goalposts for me to get to, and I just think about if I'm getting there or not, and whether or not I've got to change the goalpost, what has to change for the story to work, and I'm always working towards the final experience of reading the book, not towards an idea, not towards anything but probably emotional moments and how you're just going to generally feel when you read it. Everything else, like, there's no rules. I'm always looking to dramatically alter something, even if it's like something, it's like I figure something out by mistake. Usually those are the best discoveries, is when I just happen on it. And then when I put it into the book, everyone thinks, whoa, that's amazing, and he thought that. And I'm like, well, I kind of didn't. I just I kind of accidentally fell into that, but it really did work. I'm glad you guys like it.
So when you started out Amulet, did you expect it was going to be a 9-book series? Did you have an idea of the scope?
If I did know that, I probably wouldn't have done it. So no, I did not know that it was going to be this many books, and a lot of that was encouragement from Scholastic. I thought this was my practice run. I had another project that I thought it was going to be, the bigger project that I was going to start on after I finished the first 2 books of Amulet, which were going to be it. I thought I was just going to do these 2 books and I was out of here. But it was clear that the story was essentially pushing it further, and that there was no way I could end it where I was. So the book kind of just organically formed, which is I think exactly what you want when you write. You want the writing to carry you. I feel like I'm just a cameraman or like a stenographer or something that's just going along for the ride. When I don't feel that, I don't feel the book is working. So the book itself sort of took me here. It's hard to 100% take credit for any planning or anything, because there really wasn't that much, outside of just knowing to expect the unexpected.
That's a beautiful way of creating. It is interesting to me that it's going to end up being 9 books, like several other.
Yeah, actually, So that's one thing I did kind of control, and that's what's making it very difficult to do the 9th book in particular. I did want 9 books, actually. By the time I got to number 7, I just decided I'm going to end. I mean, by the time I was actually at number 6, we were talking about the last books. I had a contract up to 7 books, and I just knew that I couldn't finish it there. But I thought, well, I'd really like to match Bone. I want it to sit on the shelf with Jeff Smith's work. Jeff is one of my heroes, and Bone is one of my favorite works. And I would love it if kids for generations could just go to Amulet or Bone, on the shelf, and they're about this equal size. Bone's 9 volumes, so I just thought, well, I'll do 9 volumes then. I don't want to push.
It's absolutely true. And the omnibus edition is going to be an absolute brick.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be. You're going to have to get a wheelbarrow.
Well, kids are strong. So our friend Kelly Burden is asking if you like Miyazaki. What's your favorite of his films?
My favorite of his films, it changes all the time. Actually, I don't know if I have one favorite. I my go-to would be Spirited Away. I just think that's a very well-made film. And then for like, let's see, personally, I don't know. I have a real connection to My Neighbor Totoro and Kiki's Delivery Service and Porco Rosso. I mean, I love them all, and really. It's really hard. I don't know if I can pick one, because Princess Mononoke is also it's probably the most epic. And there's times where you just watch Ponyo and there's something really, really nice about that story in its small town, and Howl's Moving Castle, even though it's not, and it's very different than the book. It's got its own thing that I keep wanting to revisit. There's just so much that you can explore in Miyazaki's work that it's like a playground every time. And you can watch them again and again and again. I'm trying to write and draw things that feel like that. That they don't, they don't give you closure. There's no closure. They don't close. He doesn't close the gate. He keeps it open, and you just keep coming back to the park. And I think they're all kind of a piece in a way. So I love them all.
I love that description. It really reminds me of the way that kids and even some adults read graphic novels. They read them over and over and over again and find something new, and the interplay between the story and the art changes, and you get more insights every time. My sons are now high school graduates, and they reread Bone just, to keep themselves, sharp.
Yeah. No, exactly. And that's what I think ultimately as an artist, that's what you want, is
of course
for the work to be not just read but remembered. And it's one of the things I love about working in books, because that I think it happens more often in books than in like movies or video games, where things just kind of keep moving, and you have to in those other mediums, you really have to work really hard to like to keep people remembering something, because there's always something new. Everyone's looking for the new thing all the time. And with books, like we still celebrate the things that matter to us, and they stick around. So I think I aspire to that. I imagine a lot of filmmakers and game makers must feel this way, that they would love to be able to create something that lasts for generations.
Yeah, when I feel like with a book, and maybe even especially with the graphic novel, you develop a relationship with the characters that will develop over time as you change as a reader. And I think that writing for young people has to be especially satisfying that way.
Yeah, I think so, especially because you can, I've got so many readers who are now in college, and they started reading just in general, with my books, and some of them even having kids at this point, and so they're excited to be able to pass Amulet down to them.
Does that make you feel old?
It does, but also I don't know. I'm kind of a long-term thinker, so for me, like when I entered my 40s now, I finally feel like my age. I actually talk more now, I think, because I'm closer to the age I've kind of felt for a long time. I just felt, like I didn't visually match like the age I was inside.
Nice.
But my brother and I now in our 40s, we're like, oh yeah, this is us. But at the same time, our bodies are now falling apart. So,
Fantastic.
yeah, that's new.
Yeah. Raina Telgemeier used to occasionally she would hear from parents who would say, my kid loves your book. They read it in 45 minutes. And she's sitting there going like, yeah, great. It took me 2 years to write. Mm-hmm. But I think that this rereading thing and the relationship with, you can't, a kid who's read Smile once has at some point read Smile 5 times.
Yeah, exactly. I think like I was feeling the same way as Raina really at the beginning. I think she's probably changed her mind a bit too over the years. But at first, yeah, I thought, oh man, they're only going to spend a few minutes with me. And it's going to take me years to give them the 30 minutes that they're going to spend. But 30 minutes is kind of a long time to spend with a stranger, I think, honestly. And so, and they're gonna, if they come, but I did realize, like, yeah, they're gonna revisit this if I do it right. If it's got that feeling that you can explore it and go back to it and find new layers. Like Amulet is, when I'm writing, I'm like writing for at least 3 generations, 3 or 4 generations. Every idea I have, I think about I'm talking about for somebody who is a grandparent, for somebody who is a parent, for somebody who's a kid, and somebody who's just learning to read. And then I figured that they will just take what they're looking for out of it at the time, and then when they revisit it at a different age, they'll find that other thing. And so they'll be like, wow, like it's actually changed. The book has changed for me, and that's what I'm hoping for. I think great works of art do that. Because and by doing that, I think it connects generations, and I think ultimately my goal is to get people from different generations to empathize with each other and to work together, because I don't know how this world can hold together if parents, kids, grandparents, if multiple generations don't work together. I think we've got bad news.
Well, it is remarkable how much agency Emily and Navin have as the kids, with their mother actually there. A lot of books do like get the parents out of the way so that the kids can be heroes.
Yes.
But has it been sort of difficult to negotiate the role of mom?
So not for me, because that is my life. Like my brother and I have been my mom's kind of caretaker for a long time. since we were essentially teenagers. And in our family, like, so my real father, I don't know him personally. My mom and him split a long time ago, when I was 3 or 2 years old, and it's been just like for a few years it was my brother, my mom, and me, and that was like our unit. That was our team. And so for me, when I write, I'm just writing from experience. So it's not like I don't have the stable experience where I'm like just fighting with my mom or something. There's just been no time to fight with my mom ever, because my mom was was just my brother and me trying to help us, the family, continue and to stay alive and get through things and difficult times. And so I wrote about that, and if there are a lot of readers for Amulet, I imagine that they have similar situations in their home life as well.
Yeah, it is. It's an unusual dynamic, though. It's cool to see.
Yeah. I didn't think about it from genre, from a writer or formalist perspective. That part of it is very realist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Paulo, who says he's been a fan since forever, naturally, and he wants to know if we'll ever see Daisy Cutter again.
Yeah, I want to do the trilogy. I have a trilogy of stories. Like, by the way, so here's some drawings of the characters for those who are bored. You could have just watched it, which is good. It's what I often do when I'm at a school. I just draw, and then there's always that kid who's totally not listening to me, and then they see the drawings and they're like, oh, that's cool. But here I'll switch it up back over to me. Oh, no, that's not me. I'm not there. Let me see.
Nice looking studio.
Yeah, there we go. I'm here. All right. Yeah, Daisy Cutter. I want to get back to it. I always anticipated 3 books. I know the stories. Like, they're very clear to me. But here's the thing. Daisy Cutter is written for an older person. Like, not in terms of like what's appropriate about it. I think any kids can read Daisy Cutter. It's fine. It's like a PG rated book. But the ideas and the themes, they're very much geared towards a young adult. And by young adult, I don't mean a teenager. I mean like someone who's in their 20s, who just got out of college and is just trying to decide whether or not to move ahead with parenthood or a career. And they're trying to make that decision. They're in that nebulous phase, something that some people can find themselves in. And I wrote for that very particular type of person. And I don't think that the graphic novel, where graphic novels are right now, we haven't developed a wide enough audience to serve that particular niche audience just yet. I think it's still time to find new readers, and that's been my goal, and that's why I actually stopped working on Daisy Cutter at book 2. Mm-hmm. I was already starting it. Book 2 was already started. The story is very much there. It's very cool. Like, it's like one of the coolest projects I have, like, in my tool shed. Is Daisy Cutter 2. It's an amazing story, but it's just not time for it yet. So I had to just put it aside and work on Amulet. So I will eventually go back to Daisy Cutter when the time seems right. A lot of my work is about timing it right. And I just kind of patiently wait. I have like my one of the surf shirts on. It's a lot like surfing. You kind of waiting for the right wave, and you just have to just be patient, because you may have taken the wrong wave, and get you out of position. You're not in the lineup anymore. And Daisy Cutter that wave isn't there yet. It's clearly not. So I'm just gonna wait and just keep it alive. And at least, it kind of percolating in the minds of readers. I've done the Kickstarter, I've put it on my website. So if anybody who wants to read Daisy Cutter, The Last Train, the first book, it's all free on my website. Go ahead and read it if you want. It was like my pandemic gift to readers. But I will come back to it. And there are definitely 3 books to do.
That's interesting, because we always shelved it in I don't even think we shelved it in teen at my last library.
Oh,
And I
okay.
think it was because of the association of you with Amulet and Copper
Yeah.
that, your book, your stuff was all shoved, like all, not shoved, but you know what I mean, put
No,
all
yeah.
together at the same age group. And I think maybe comics has just begun to admit the idea of creators being able to write for different age groups. And I think Jarrett's book that
Hey Kiddo. Yeah.
Hey Kiddo, thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, there's been a lot of graphic novels made for very wide audiences, and and especially for older audiences. I mean, the books that everyone comes back to are books like Alison Bechdel's Fun Home, or Mouse, Spiegelman's Mouse, or Watchmen, Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. I think that that we do have an audience there for the older set, but we're still at like a critical phase of this new movement of readers that are reading Dogman, that are reading Amulet, that are reading Smile. It's a very different generation, and they don't have that attachment to those other books, the critically acclaimed books that we talked about. I think that there is space already, but if you look at some place like Tokyo, if you go to Japan and you go to France, or just almost like most European countries, and you see what they're reading in terms of comics and how they process comics and their culture, we in America have kind of we took a few steps back somewhere. I don't know where it was, probably the 60s, 70s. It probably has to do with the Frederick Wortham's Seduction of the Innocents book and the crackdown on comics by way of the Comics Code Authority. Ever since then, growth in comics has been stunted. We're still watching movies based on comics that were created in the 50s. That's the Marvel and DC movies. So, we have a lot of work to do ahead of us to establish a true new mainstream, and I think that's where we're at right now. So,
I think but I think in the 15 years since I've been a librarian, and I've been a comics reader since about 87. Actually, I can pinpoint it to V for Vendetta, but in the 15 years since I've been a librarian, it's been a much easier sell to get teachers, librarians, and parents on the train of graphic novels are fine. There is nothing wrong and nothing, sort of lowbrow about your kid reading graphic novels. And so I think you're growing that generation.
Yes,
all of these Amulet readers.
Yeah, all the like Flight artists. If you look at Flight and look at the creators on there, that includes Raina, includes Ben Hatke, Jeff Smith in there as well. I think that they're here, but there's a ton of room for growth. I mean, graphic novels will be everywhere at some point, and I think of this not because graphic novels are great or whatever, it's not a subjective thing in my opinion. I think my observation is that people have less time, less free time to spend on the recreational activities like reading, if they consider that a recreational activity. I think it's essential. But in order to fit it into their schedule, they're going to need the writers and the creators of these works to be better at condensing information. And nothing condenses information better in the literary world than comics.
Or adding a picture,
Yeah, using pictures and words, like you get a density of information. You create big memories in small spaces, and I think that makes the work essential to a fast-moving society. Which is why in Tokyo and Japan, it's like comics are the premier form of entertainment.
All right, I just wrote down big memories in small spaces. That's brilliant. All right, I can talk to you all day, but we have a few things that we gotta just.
We got a question, I think, from Paolo.
We have a question from Paolo. He's saying, "Will we ever see an autobiographical novel from you?" And while you're doing that, I want you to somehow blend in the information that you have an entire artistic family. Your wife is also a graphic All right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I do want to do an auto bio. I have it ready to go. Actually, I have a book in mind to do, but I don't want to announce it or anything like that right here. So I'll just hold off on that. But yes, I'm thinking about one. And my wife, Amy Kim Kibuishi, who was formerly Amy Kim Ganter, she has a series coming out from Scholastic Graphics as well. And so for those of you who love Amulet, you're gonna really love her book. It's more literary than Amulet. My books are like action movies, and her book is an action movie, but it's also like it's like, you know, Diana Wynne Jones or Philip Pullman type of epic fantasy, and it has so many layers, and she studies so much about mythology and everything. It's really fantastic, and it's based on her webcomic. She's worked on it since she was like 14 years old or younger, and this book is phenomenal. Anybody who's seen it, they're just blown away by it. So, her first book, I believe, comes out next February.
Fantastic. So next February for a new graphic novel series from Amy Kim Kibuishi off of Scholastic Graphics.
Yes.
That you're not allowed to reveal the title of.
No, I don't want to be the one to do it. So I'll wait. Yeah, I'll wait for Scholastic Graphics to be able to do that. They'll talk about it soon, and I'll be promoting it all the time.
And we'll be looking for Amulet Book 9 in 2022.
I can't say. We have a date, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. I'm just working on finishing it. But yeah, it'll be around that time. Yep.
All right. Well, I want to recommend to our watchers that you check the links in the chat to enter for your chance to win a free copy of Amulet. I want to direct people to your website, boltcityproductions.com, where there is a lot of really cool stuff like trailers and things like that. And I want to send everybody to the library. Come to the Southeast Anchor branch and talk to me, and I will hook you up with the best graphic novels.
All right. Go to
Thank
the library.
you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for this wonderful conversation. I hope the audience enjoyed it. And next up to close out the day is our Kahoot trivia. That's how we're closing out the day. So meet us in 15 minutes and we'll be back. Have a great weekend.
Bye. Bye, everybody.